Welcome in, Ravens flock. This is Jordan with Ravens Flash Report, and today's video is going to be one that I've wanted to make for a while now. And whether or not you've been a Ravens fan for decades or only the last year or two, it's undeniable that this 2023 team is special. Now, the word special is extremely vague and probably is overused at this point in the NFL lexicon as elite or generational talent. So let me explain what I really mean when I say that this team is special. They are very good. They are very balanced, and they're primed for what we all hope to be a deep playoff run or Super Bowl run. Now, many teams in the past have met this criteria. Some might even say that the 2019 Ravens were all of those things. But I'm not really a part of that group because of how this team is winning and how this team is built. This team is special not because of the stars that show up in big moments like Lamar, Odell, or even Roquan. Almost every team relies on its stars to win games like Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey, and so on. Baltimore is special because of the contributions they get from those that are not stars, the depth guys, the backups, and journeymen. We're going to take a look at what some of those players have done this year that we fans who have watched them all season long know how much they've meant to this team, even though they won't get all the hype and glam on national shows for what they've accomplished. So let me show you, even if you think you already know, why this 2023 Ravens team has become the embodiment of the next man up mindset. Let's get to it. Now, of course, to set the stage, we're going to introduce those that do draw the crowd and the eyes of the media, and no one draws in more viewers than our soon to be two-time MVP quarterback Lamar Jackson. It's become undeniable that he is the MVP of the season, but if you're here watching this, you probably already agree with that. The only other person on this team that draws nearly as many eyes to the screen is Odell Beckham Jr., but we're going to be talking about him later, so let's move on to Lamar's favorite target, Mark Andrews, who, up until the Thursday night game against Cincinnati, was having another stellar season. Even with him being out since that game, he still is the leader in touchdowns at 6. J.K. Dobbins was a budding star that many, even outside of Baltimore, were excited to see after him finally being healthy from injuries he had over the 2021 and 2022 season. Unfortunately, we also know that he went down in the first game of the season. Roquan Smith, Marlon Humphrey, and Marcus Williams are not only leaders on the defense, but some of the biggest playmakers too. And while Roquan has been a tank all year, both Marlon and Marcus have missed some time due to injuries this season. Now, Eric DeCosta has received decent praise and support so far, but he's also gotten a lot of criticism and caught a lot of flack for becoming the GM after Ozzie Newsome stepped down. Big shoes to fill, to be sure. And after all, one of the franchise's slogans is "In Ozzie We Trust." It's going to come with a high level of expectation. Now, I always believed that the slogan was mainly referring to his ability to draft well, especially on defense. But let's take a second look at some of the players that DeCosta has picked up that have not only been hits, but they've been home runs. Starting with what has to be labeled as his weakest area of the draft, wide receiver. But now all seems forgiven with the talents of Zay Flowers. Zay has not only broken the franchise record for rookie receptions and receiving yards, he has already established himself as the number one receiver on this offense. Going back one season, we find that EDC drafted 2 players in the first round who have already established themselves as top players at each of their positions. Tyler Linderbaum and Kyle Hamilton are Pro Bowlers in just their second season, and to say that they've been worth their first round status would be criminally underselling the stability and versatility they both bring to their respective units. Linderbaum has only had 3 penalties called on him all year, and if you don't know, the mark of a good offensive lineman, especially at center, is not hearing your name called. Also, a fun fact provided by PFF is that since week 11, out of 219 pass blocking snaps, he's allowed only 6 pressures and 0 sacks. Let me just remind you the teams we've faced since week 11. Chargers, Rams, Jags, 49ers, and Dolphins. I don't have the data yet for the Steelers game. Kyle, on the other hand, not to be outdone, is being called the best safety in the league already, and while I agree, it wasn't me that said that or another content creator, it was Kyle Shanahan, head coach of the 49ers. And that was before he played them and had 2 picks, 3 pass deflections, and 5 tackles while lining up for 15 snaps in the slot, 14 at outside linebacker, 9 at safety, 6 at the edge, 2 at inside linebacker, and 1 at defensive tackle, as per Ryan Mink's tweet via Next Gen Stats after the game. If we go back even a couple years before that, to 2020, we'll see a first rounder and a third rounder in Patrick Queen and Justin Madubuike. And what's this? They're also Pro Bowlers. And while it's awesome to see the development and growth of these two, savor every moment because it's a contract year for both, and although I'm not a cap expert, I find it very hard to believe that we'll be able to hold on to both of them, and maybe even one of them. With Madubuike breaking out as one of the best, if not the best, interior D linemen in the league this year, racking up 13 sacks, which leads the league for his position. Pair that with 12 tackles for loss, 33 QB hits, and a forced fumble, and that's why he's a Pro Bowler who will be paid by someone top dollar next season. Queen, on the other hand, is, as I described him earlier this season, an absolute weapon. He's second on the team behind only Roquan in tackles with 133 to Roquan's 158, and combined, they're second in the league in total tackles as a duo, only behind the linebackers Oluokun and Lloyd from Jacksonville. His impressive stat line shows you what a diverse player he is on top of tackling. 3.5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, 6 QB hits, 6 pass deflections, an interception, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. He's basically everywhere. Hopefully by this point you can see that EDC can draft, but another category that undoubtedly blows Aussie out of the water is his free agency market. Oh look, it's OBJ again. So I said you'd see him again, and Odell has been worth every penny to me for no more than these 3 simple reasons. Number 1, he helped convince Lamar that they were invested in him and how he wants to play the game. 2, he's mentored and coached every player on the team. Now, notice that I said team and not just the offense. Patrick Queen has said a few weeks ago that Beckham is like an older brother that he never had, always looking out for everybody and asking if they ever need anything. And 3, of course, his play on the field. Now, some may say it's not worth 18 mil, but you can't buy clutch. You can't coach clutch, and you can't put a price tag on a player making big plays when the offense needs it, and we're going to need it in this upcoming postseason. Now, Clowney is having his best statistical year he's had since 2019 with Seattle, not to mention that he's played in every single game. Didn't we hear something about him not being able to stay healthy? Anyway, he's driven and hungry, which shows when you see what he's posted, a career-tying high of 9.5 sacks at the edge position. He's 5th in pass rush win rate, only behind Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, Will Anderson, and TJ Watt. He's not a mercenary out to make a buck. Did you notice how that narrative died down once he got to Baltimore? I can't wait to see him perform in the playoffs. Now, Kyle Van Noy joined the team in Week 4 and has since set a career high in sacks with 9 through just 14 games and 486 snaps on defense. Now, that might sound like a lot, but he hasn't been below 500 snaps in a season since 2015 with Detroit. So he's being used sparingly and getting a lot of results out of it. Remember this past offseason when we were all worried about how this team was going to generate pressure without Calais Campbell, Houston, or even Bowser. Now, Van Noy was signed for $1.4 million while Clowney was signed for $2.5, and they combined for 18.5 sacks between them. Nick Bosa, just this past offseason, signed a new contract where he makes $34 million annually. So for fun, I figured out how much each sack was worth. Bosa has 10.5 sacks this year, so each sack costs roughly $3.2 million. Meanwhile, Van Noy and Clowney sacks combined cost $418,000 per sack, which is over 7.5 times less than Bosa's. Now, I know these players offer more than just sacks, but it's always fun for me to do these quick little calculations. Darby and Millette sound like a band name to me, but if it was up to me, I'd go see him. Because with injuries keeping Marlon in and out of the lineup and no more Marcus Peters, they've been rock stars this year, not just filling in where needed, but stepping up all throughout. Millette has 2 sacks, one of which on his former team, and he also added a fumble recovery in Week 18 as well. Darby is only allowing 44.2% on completions and holding QBs to a 63.3 rating when targeting him. You want to guess where that number ranks with him career-wise? It's his best. If you remember, we signed him when he was coming off of an ACL tear from the Thursday night game on October the 6th just last year when he played for Denver. These two guys have been absolute warriors this year and played their butts off 2 weeks ago against Miami, allowing a combined 7 receptions on 15 targets for a total of 33 yards. Rating against Darby, 56.2, his 4th lowest of the year. Millette, 50.3, his 5th lowest of the year. This last group of guys is really what made me want to make this video in the first place. In the third quarter of the Week 1 game against the Texans, on a 2nd and 9, J.K. Dobbins runs for 4 yards, gets tackled, and tears his Achilles. Season over. Now, we've been here before, but unlike 2021, Gus Edwards is healthy. Gus is not a star. He's quiet and serious and focused. Since joining the Ravens as an undrafted back in 2018, Gus has been remarkably steady, and excluding his 2022 season where he came in late due to his 2021 injury, He's carried the ball at least 130 times every season for at least 700 yards. This year, he's carried it 198 carries for 810 yards. Now, the big difference? Touchdowns. In 2018, he had 2. In 2019, 2. 2020, he had 6. And then in 2022, he had 3. So over his first 4 years, he has a total of 13. In 2023 alone, he has 13. In 2020, when he had 6 total, he had one game where he had 2 in a single game, and that's when we beat the Browns 47-42. But in 2023, he's had 2 games with 2 touchdowns and one game with 3 against Arizona. Now, all 3 of these multi-touchdown games came during a 5-game stretch where he racked up 9 total touchdowns, 388 yards from scrimmage. He has also gotten more targets in the pass game, catching 12 of 13 targets for 180 yards. On the Ravens' first offensive drive against the Bengals in Week 11, Mark Andrews caught a pass, turned upfield inside Cincy's 10-yard line, where Logan Wilson, in trying to stop Mark's forward momentum, used a hip drop tackle which fractured Mark's fibula and caused additional ligament damage. Harbaugh called it a season-ending injury, but we'll see. But up until that game, Isaiah Likely only had 9 receptions on 10 targets for an ironic and oddly symbolic 89 yards. He also didn't have any touchdowns to this point. But since Mark's injury, Likely has filled in as the tight end 1, and during those 6 games, he has 21 receptions on 28 targets, 322 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Not only has Likely been an absolute beast for this offense, making some of the most impressive and clutch catches of the year, he's also alleviated the fear that hit a lot of Ravens fans when we saw Mark go down. Now, Marcus Williams is a Pro Bowl caliber safety, and the Ravens signing him following the 2021 season was seen as a great move for a team that was desperately in need for a ball-hogging free safety. And in 2022, they were proven right, as Williams hauled in 3 picks in just the first 2 games. In Week 5, Williams went down and was placed on IR with a dislocated wrist, which they're kind of important for a safety. Geno Stone was bumped up to fill in during the 7-game absence, and he did an admirable job. In the same week, Dobbins tore his Achilles against the Texans this year. Williams tore his pec. Well, at least we know Geno can fill in, right? That's what we all thought. And yeah, as you know, Geno filled in all right. Week 2, pick number 1. Week 4, pick number 2. Week 6 through Week 9, picks 3, 4, 5, and 6. And just to remind us that he was still here in Week 16, he had pick number 7. Geno Stone has 1 pick before this season from back in 2021 in a 13-16 loss versus the Steelers. Can you imagine how excited Mike Macdonald must have been when Marcus Williams came back and he could have Williams, Hamilton, and Stone out on the field this year? And if you were worried about Stone being forgotten when Marcus came back, you can forget about it. Marcus came back in Week 10, and from Week 10 until now, Stone has logged over 65% of defensive snaps in every game. And to put that in perspective, in Weeks 14 and 16, Marcus played less snaps than Geno did. The only thing I have left to say about Geno is that he has the second most interceptions in the league with 7. He has a 63.8 passer rating against him when targeted, and only allows a 63.6% completion percentage. The fact that this man did not get selected to the Pro Bowl is a crime. Last but absolutely not least of our next man up overperformers is none other than the Chimera himself, Brandon Stephens. Like I said in the intro, we started the season with no Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters is gone. Rock Ya-Sin is losing snaps to Darby and Mollett immediately, and the fan base was worried. I was worried. Then, as if it would magically fix things, they said, you know what? We wanted to have Brandon play safety, but with our depth issues, I guess he can play corner. And yeah, it did magically fix things. In 2021, when we drafted Stephens in the 3rd round, he played safety, and through 17 weeks, it was kind of ugly. 75.6% completions against him and a passer rating of 128.8 when targeted. Yikes. He was moved to DB in 2022, and it was better, but he only started in 4 games. And in those 4 games, he still had a completion percentage of 70.9 and a passer rating against him of 87. I don't know what happened to him this year. Maybe he started believing in himself or something, but it just finally clicked, whatever it was, and he's allowed a completion percentage of only 62.9 while being targeted 105 times, and the passer rating against him was dropped to 81 through Week 17. I don't have his advanced numbers yet for Week 18. Sorry. I'm sure he's still doing fine. So, this team has been an absolute blast this year, and the camaraderie and true feelings of friendship from this group is unlike anything I've seen before. 2019 was fun and lighthearted, but this season feels like these players are really bonding, digging deep within themselves, and playing for each other with complete focus. This really is a special team, you guys, and if you don't agree with me at this point, well, that's fine. I'm just fine sitting here by myself enjoying all the greatness that this roster has shown us. The stars are great, big names are exciting, but seeing players work hard and really reach the potential that you know they've been chasing their whole life to achieve is a rare and beautiful thing in sports and in life. We're often left wondering for players and ourselves what could have been if things had gone differently, or if this guy had really gotten a chance, what could he have done? Well, we've seen that this year, and while Eric DaCosta, John, and all the other coaches have done a great job building and training this roster, it's really been the players that have broken through all the limiters set before them, and I can't wait to see what they do next. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe while you're at it. This was a really fun one to make, guys, and I really do hope you had a good time and are as excited for the postseason as I am. As always, guys, stay safe out there and go Ravens.